Forget the shiny new rigs at the truck stop. The trucks that built this continent are still out there dragging logs off mountains no GPS has ever mapped, mixing concrete on job sites, plowing airport runways at 50 miles an hour. They were welded, riveted, and hammered together by people who expected them to outlive their owners, and they did. Here are 10 more forgotten workhorses from the 1960s that still put the modern machines built to replace them to shame. Number 10. The Chevrolet heavy-duty Viking and Spartan. Let's start with the truck your grandfather probably drove, because it's the one you're most likely to still see working today. When people think 1960s Chevy trucks, they picture pickups. But General Motors also built a full range of medium and heavy-duty conventionals, and they were everywhere. From 1960 to 1966, Chevrolet's bigger trucks wore names most people have forgotten. The Viking for the medium-duty C50 and C60 models, and the Spartan for the heavier C70 and C80s. In 1966, GMC rolled out its first trucks designed from scratch as heavy-duty rigs, and in 1967 the whole line was modernized into what GM called the Action Line. Now here's the honest part. These were not exotic machines. They didn't haul 100-ton loads or climb logging mountains. What they did was show up every single day and do the unglamorous work that keeps a country fed and built: grain trucks, flatbeds, dump bodies, delivery rigs, tow trucks, and farm haulers. And that's exactly why they belong on this list. Drive through farm country today and you'll still spot them. A 1965 Chevy grain truck backed up to a barn. An old C60 with a flatbed that a small contractor has run for 50 years. These trucks survived because they were mechanically dead simple. A carbureted big block, a manual gearbox, drum brakes, and almost nothing that a farmer with a socket set couldn't fix in his own shop. A modern medium-duty truck is far more capable, but it's also full of emissions, plumbing, and electronic controls that a small operator can't touch, and when one of those faults, the truck goes to a dealer. The old Viking has none of that. It just needs fuel, spark, and a driver. That's why so many are still parked in a working position instead of a scrapyard. The humblest truck on this list, and one of the most stubbornly alive. Number 9. The Dodge LCF and L-series. Chrysler's heavy trucks are the underdogs of this era, and the people who own them will tell you they were built to be worked on. Dodge's medium and heavy-duty line in the 1960s was the LCF, short for low cab forward. Introduced in 1960 and built all the way to 1976. The numbers told you the weight class. The 500 through 700 series were medium duty, while the 800 through 1000 series were the real heavy haulers, some of them running Cummins, Caterpillar, or Detroit diesel power. In Canada, the very same trucks wore Fargo badges, and in some export markets they even went out as DeSotos. Then in February 1964, Dodge added the L-series tilt cab, and this is where the durability story gets interesting. The L-series wasn't designed in a vacuum. Dodge developed it in cooperation with the people who actually lived with these trucks: owners, drivers, and mechanics. The result was a truck engineered around service. It could turn tight, with a 50-degree steering angle. Key areas of the body were galvanized against rust. The engine and transmission were laid out so accessibly that an owner could do a lot of the routine servicing without even tilting the cab. The heavy-duty LCF conventionals were built like small bridges, reinforced with heavy-gauge steel and box-section beams, with the cab riding on thick rubber mounts to snub out the punishment of rough roads. Even the steering column had a double joint to soak up road shock. That obsession with strength and serviceability is why 1960s Dodges still turn up doing real work as farm trucks, tow trucks, and small fleet haulers whose owners never saw a reason to replace something that won't quit. Dodge eventually walked away from the heavy truck business in the mid-1970s, which makes these survivors orphans with no factory support. And yet they keep running, because a truck designed hand-in-hand with mechanics is a truck mechanics can keep alive forever. The Mopar faithful never needed a computer to diagnose one, they just needed the hood up and a wrench in hand. Number 8. The White Freightliner cabover. This is the truck that quietly invented the look of the modern American semi, and it did it by obsessing over one thing: weight. Freightliner didn't invent the cabover, but it perfected it. Back in 1954, the company debuted a flat-nosed cabover model, that would dictate North American big rig design for the next 40 years, and in 1958 it added a tilting cab for easy engine access. Because Freightliner sold its trucks through White Motor Company's dealer network starting in 1951, the trucks of this era carried the White Freightliner name, and by the 1960s they were a dominant force in long-haul trucking. Here's what made them special and why they lasted. Freightliner was fanatical about lightness. Its cabs were the first in the industry built out of aluminum, not steel. That obsession did two things at once. It let owners legally scale much heavier paying loads under weight laws, which put more money in their pockets on every trip, and it created a truck that resisted the rust that kills steel rigs. Even the body construction was ahead of its time. Freightliner riveted on removable exterior panels, so if a driver crumpled a panel, a mechanic simply drilled out the old rivets, popped on a fresh lightweight aluminum panel, and riveted it back. Try that with a modern molded composite cab. These trucks were compact, short wheelbased, and nimble, perfect for pulling the double and triple trailers of the West. They weren't luxurious. Drivers in the Canadian winters complained the thin front face let the cold pour in, and you learned to wear an extra layer. But they were tough, endlessly repairable, and light enough to earn their keep decades after they were built. That's the whole formula. A modern aero truck is more comfortable and more efficient, no argument, but it's a sealed, electronically managed appliance. The old White Freightliner was a riveted aluminum box you could rebuild panel by panel, engine by engine forever. Plenty are still out there earning a living, which is a remarkable second act for a truck whose entire design philosophy was simply make it lighter, make it simpler, and make the owner more money on every single load. Number 7. The Mack F-Series. Everybody knows the classic Mack with the bulldog on a long hood. Far fewer remember that Mack also built one of the toughest long-haul cabovers of the era, and it wore the same bulldog. The Mack F-Series arrived in 1962 as the company's third generation of cabover engine trucks, and it stayed in production all the way to 1981. This was a serious Class 8 machine built for the interstate. The day cab version had a stubby 50-inch cab to maximize trailer length, while long-haul drivers could step up to sleeper cabs stretching to 72, 80, and eventually 86 inches with a bustle back bunk. What made the F-Series a workhorse was what Mack put under that cab. Buyers could spec Mack's own legendary diesels, the Thermodyne and later the high-torque Maxodyne, in ratings up to around 375 horsepower, or choose Big Cummins, Detroit Diesel, and Caterpillar Power. And critically, you could order it with either a steel frame for maximum strength or an aluminum frame to save weight and haul more payload. That flexibility made the F-Series a favorite for fleets that ran their equipment hard for a very long time. Mack's reputation is built on one word: durability, and it isn't marketing. Mack engineered its trucks for the punishing world of vocational and long-haul work, and the F-Series inherited that DNA completely. These were trucks bought by operators who intended to run them for hundreds of thousands of miles and rebuild them rather than replace them. Here's the key to why it still outworks modern rigs. The F-Series is pure mechanical Mack. The engine is a rebuildable roadside serviceable diesel. There's no emissions computer to fault, no electronic control module with an expiration date. When something wears, you fix it and keep going. And Mack built its whole business on components that were designed to be fixed, not thrown away. Restored and working F-Series Macks still show up at truck shows and in small fleets. And the reason is simple: Mack didn't build disposable trucks. It built machines with a bulldog on the nose and an attitude to match, and nearly 20 years in production proved that when Mack got a design right, it stayed right for a very, very long time. Number 6. The Oshkosh Severe Duty Trucks. Here's a company whose entire reason for existing is a single idea: build the truck that does the job no ordinary truck can survive. And unlike almost everyone else on this list, Oshkosh is not only still alive, it's a giant. Through the 1960s, Oshkosh out of Wisconsin was the specialist. Its trucks did the brutal work. Take the WT-2206, a heavy-duty snowplow truck so capable it could clear snow while barreling along at 55 miles an hour, and the U.S. Air Force bought them by the thousand to keep runways open at its northernmost Cold War bases, where a blocked runway during the distant early warning era wasn't an inconvenience, it was a national security problem. Then there was concrete. Oshkosh's four-wheel drive mixers were an immediate hit in the ready-mix industry because they could claw their way across a muddy construction site where a normal truck would bury itself. In 1956, the company built the Model 1832, its first tandem-axle ready-mix truck, and through the 1960s it developed an entire family of severe-duty haulers, the F-Series with a forward axle, the C-Series with a setback axle, and the D-Series with tandem driving front axles, available in configurations as wild as 8x6 and 10x8. That is the point of an Oshkosh. Full-time all-wheel drive, overbuilt axles, and a chassis engineered to survive the exact conditions that destroy ordinary trucks: deep snow, wet concrete pads, off-road construction sites, and airfields. And the durability lineage isn't a guess, because the company is still here and still doing it. Today, Oshkosh is a major manufacturer of the toughest vehicles on Earth, military transports, airport crash trucks, and the very same brutal snow removal rigs. A brand that has spent a century refining severe-duty engineering doesn't build fragile trucks, and it never did. A modern vocational truck is capable, but it's also full of sensors and regeneration cycles that hate the dust, heat, salt, and pounding vibration that an Oshkosh treats as a normal Tuesday. The 1960s Oshkosh was purpose-built for abuse, with a huge margin of strength baked in, and machines built like that don't retire. They just keep plowing, mixing, and hauling long after softer trucks have given up. Number 5. The FWD. Before four-wheel drive was a checkbox on a pickup, there was a company that had already spent half a century proving it could conquer anything, and it built its trucks accordingly. FWD stands for four-wheel drive, and the company was founded back in 1909 in Clintonville, Wisconsin, by a blacksmith named Otto Zachow and a machinist named William Besedick. They built the first successful four-wheel drive vehicle, nicknamed the Battleship, and patented a full-time all-wheel drive system so effective that both world wars ran on FWD trucks when the going got impossible. The company was so confident in its machines that it once posted a standing $1,000 reward for anyone who could beat an FWD vehicle on an obstacle course. Nobody ever claimed it. By the 1960s, FWD had renamed itself FWD Corporation and was building serious heavy-duty all-wheel drive trucks for the jobs where traction is everything: construction, utility work, plowing, and severe off-road hauling. And in 1963, the company bought Seagrave, one of America's most respected fire apparatus builders, moving Seagrave's operations right into Clintonville. That connection matters because it points at exactly why FWD trucks last. Fire trucks and severe-duty rigs are held to a brutal standard. They have to start and perform every single time for decades, or people die. FWD built to that standard across the board. These were heavy, over-engineered, all-wheel drive machines designed to go where nothing else could and keep doing it for a lifetime. Consider that some of the company's early trucks were still being used as construction rigs and snow plows into the 1940s, decades after they were built, and you understand the culture behind the brand. That's why a 1960s FWD still shames a modern truck at the one thing it was built for, showing up in the worst conditions imaginable and simply working. The all-wheel drive system is mechanical and rebuildable. The chassis was built with fire truck margins of safety, and the company's entire century-long identity was refusing to be the vehicle that got stuck or the vehicle that quit. FWD trucks didn't do either, and the survivors still don't. Number 4. The Marmon. They called it the Rolls-Royce of trucks. And this one earns its spot not by being the toughest on paper, but by being so perfectly built that drivers said it simply never broke. The Marmon story is a strange and wonderful one. In 1963, after the previous Marmon truck operation wound down, a new company, the Marmon Motor Company, set up shop in Denton, Texas, and revived the Marmon name to build premium heavy trucks. And premium is an understatement. There was no real assembly line. Marmon didn't build trucks and hope they'd sell. Every single Marmon was essentially hand-built from the ground up, made to one specific customer's exacting specifications. No unordered trucks came off the floor. Early on, most were cabover tractors with a wide range of sleeper options, and buyers could climb through roughly 24 base models and trim levels toward increasingly luxurious rigs. Comfort and quality were so central to the design that the Rolls-Royce nickname stuck permanently. But here's what makes a Marmon belong on a durability list rather than just a luxury one. Because these trucks were hand-assembled and designed with the driver first, they were also designed with the mechanic in mind. Things that were a knuckle-busting nightmare to reach on other trucks were laid out for easy access on a Marmon. And the people who actually ran them are blunt about the result. One driver who hauled aggregate in a Marmon summed it up perfectly. It was the ideal gravel pit truck because you never had to worry about anything breaking. Loggers in the Pacific Northwest loved them for the same reason: reliable and engineered so the hard-to-reach jobs on other trucks were simple on a Marmon. When your reputation among working truckers is "it doesn't break," and when you do need to touch it, it's easy, you've built something special. Marmon kept hand-building trucks all the way to 1997, and the survivors are prized precisely because of how they were made. There's no substitute for a truck assembled one at a time by people who cared. A modern truck is built by robots to a price. A Marmon was built by hand to a standard, and standards like that don't wear out. Number 3. The Western Star. Some trucks got tough by accident. Western Star was engineered tough on purpose from the very first day, and that day was in the 1960s. Western Star is a child of 1967, when the White Motor Company launched the brand specifically to build trucks for one of the most punishing customer bases on the continent: the loggers, miners, and oil field crews of the Pacific Northwest and Western Canada. The company set up shop in Kelowna, British Columbia, and rolled out its first model, the 4900, in 1968. This was never meant to be a delicate highway hauler. It was born to survive the kind of job site where, as the company itself puts it, a single cut corner leads to a very bad day. And Western Star built to that brief. In those early years, the company would create custom modifications for customers right on the factory floor, tailoring each truck to the brutal specific job it was headed for. That approach earned Western Star a fierce reputation among small fleets and owner-operators, the buyers who spend their own money and therefore demand trucks that last. Here's the proof that the philosophy was real. Western Star is still with us, where nearly every other brand on this list is a ghost. Western Star survived, was bought by Daimler, and still builds some of the most rugged heavy-duty trucks on the market today for logging, mining, construction, and heavy haul. And when it started building highway trucks, the company deliberately built them to the same standard as its work trucks, because that reputation for durability was the whole point of the brand. That's why a Western Star from the 1960s and early 70s still works harder than a comparable modern truck. It was designed from a blank sheet with one obsession: surviving the worst job site on Earth, and everything about it, from the frame to the axles, reflects that. The trucks were simple, brutally strong, and built to be run for decades in conditions that would destroy a lesser rig. Western Star didn't earn its W on the highway. It earned it in the mud, the snow, and the rock, starting in the 1960s, and never letting up since. Number 2. The Haze. Now we head into the mountains of British Columbia, where the loggers needed trucks so tough that ordinary American rigs literally could not survive, so they built their own. Haze was a Vancouver company that went all the way back to 1920. And the reason it existed says everything. In the early days, Haze sold American-built trucks, until it became clear those trucks simply weren't strong enough for the monstrous loads of British Columbia's old-growth logging industry. So Haze started building its own trucks, engineered specifically for the climate and the brutal terrain of the Pacific Northwest. The result was a legend: the Haze HDX, a massive off-road logging truck with a chrome bear standing on the hood in place of the usual ornament. These were not normal trucks. One 1966 HDX stood 16 feet tall and 12 feet wide, a machine built to drag enormous fir logs down twisting, treacherous mountain roads that no highway truck could handle, and the people who ran them worshipped them. A writer who grew up on Vancouver Island in the 1970s and 80s remembered Hayes trucks being everywhere, and the log haulers swearing by them as the toughest units available, full stop. There's a documented case of two Hayes log haulers teaming up in 1958 to carry a single 230-foot Douglas fir down 35 kilometers of mountain logging road, a job that took hours of white-knuckle driving over tight corners and a narrow trestle. Here's the part that lands this truck near the top of the list. These trucks refused to die. Even after Hayes was absorbed, Mack took a majority stake in 1969, and the company was eventually dissolved in the mid-1970s. The HDX kept working. Enthusiasts on Vancouver Island report Hayes trucks still actively hauling in fleets decades later, and specialist shops in British Columbia still rebuild these off-highway monsters from the ground up because nothing modern does the job any better in that terrain. That is the ultimate test. A truck brand can die, the factory can close, and the part supply can dry up, and a Hayes will still be out there in the mountains, dragging logs, because it was built by people who needed it to survive where nothing else could. It did. It still does. Number 1, the Pacific. And at number 1 is the truck that answers the question, does it still work harder than a modern truck? With a single, almost unbelievable statistic. Pacific Truck and Trailer was founded in Vancouver in 1947 by 3 men who had walked out of that Hayes factory to build something even tougher. Like Hayes, Pacific specialized in the most extreme work on the planet. Heavy-duty off-highway logging trucks for the mountains of British Columbia, plus heavy haulers and fire trucks. And Pacific built characters, not appliances. The company's off-highway P-Series trucks were engineered to be nearly indestructible. The legendary P-16 log hauler was built around a frame made from a pair of 16-inch solid steel I-beams welded into a rigid structure so strong it could shrug off loads that would fold an ordinary truck in half. Some Pacific models could handle gross weights well over 120,000 pounds. These were not highway trucks, they were purpose-built monsters, with huge radiators to survive scorching heat and frames designed for one thing, hauling massive payloads over terrain that has no mercy. And the world noticed. Pacific trucks were exported to New Zealand after loggers there saw what they could do, and to South Africa in the 1970s to haul 370-ton loads in 50 degrees Celsius heat, powered by 800 horsepower V12 diesels. From the forests of British Columbia to the mines of Africa, Pacific became a byword for trucks that could not be broken. Now, here is the number that puts this truck at the very top. Over its entire history, Pacific built roughly 2,308 trucks, and of those, more than half are still operational today. Let that sink in. A company that's been effectively gone for decades, building custom off-highway trucks in tiny numbers, and over 50% of everything it ever made is still capable of work. Some trucks bought for 15 years of service ran 30 years and beyond. No modern truck comes anywhere close to that survival rate, and none ever will. Because none is built the way a Pacific was, hand-assembled around solid I-beams, with a mechanical drivetrain you can rebuild indefinitely, and not a single electronic component that can strand it. Pacific built trucks to outlive the forests they worked in. Half of them are still proving it, which makes the Pacific the truck that more than any other from the 1960s genuinely still works harder than the machines built to replace it. So that's it for today. If you like this video, then please hit the like and subscribe button for more videos. Thanks for watching.